In this video, we're going to show you how to create and send your first invoice with Scope Freelancer. Now to do this, first we need to navigate over to the payments area of our account. Just click payments on the left menu, and that should bring you directly to the invoices area. To get started with an invoice, just come over here to the new button and select new invoice. As you can see, there's also an option to create a recurring invoice. This would be for retainer or subscription clients. We're going to cover that in another video, so let's just start with a normal one-off invoice for now. All right, we've got the invoice editor open in front of us, and the basic layout is this. On the right, you have the actual invoice, and on the left, you have all of the different options that you can change and edit for that invoice, which will then be updated in real time as you make the changes. First off, let's just go to the top and give this invoice a name. I usually prefer typing the customer's name and then maybe the product or service that I am selling to them. And now let's just go from top to bottom. Here at the top, first of all, we can just double check that our business information is correct. You can see this on the right side of the invoice here. If any of this is incorrect, you should go and check your account's default business settings because that's where this information is being pulled from. So if it's wrong here, that means it's wrong there as well, and you should really go fix that so that you don't have incorrect information being sent out on any invoices or through any of the other tools. Next up, we need to actually select a customer. So first, the customer needs to be a contact in your system. If they're not, back out of the invoice editor and go add them as a contact. Once they are there, all we have to do is either start typing in their name or, of course, find them in the drop-down menu here and just select them. All right, so now we've got an invoice and a customer attached to the invoice. From here, we can edit the invoice number, although this is automatically done by the system to create a unique invoice number for every invoice. So you don't really need to edit this unless you have a special reason to do so. After that, we have the issue and due date. By default, the issue date will be the day you create the invoice, and the due date will be calculated based on your invoice settings. So the default invoice setting is a due date 14 days into the future. This is something you can edit individually for each invoice, and you can also edit the default settings if you prefer to have a due date that's shorter or longer than that. Okay, finally, we actually need to add a product or service that we are billing this client for. So let's click Add Product. And right here, we can just select a product from this drop-down menu. If you haven't created any products yet, then you can just click the Create Product button at the top. And otherwise, I'm just going to scroll down and find maybe here this logo design product. So we're selling logos. Let's just say I'm selling this client 3 logos. That's automatically going to take the price here and calculate it to give us a total amount due for the customer. You can add tax up here as well. And if I keep scrolling, you'll see there are lots of other different settings that we can use to customize this invoice even further. For example, we can add discounts, we can add a payment schedule, we can add terms and conditions, and we can also do things like charging late fees, include a possibility for the customer to add a tip, and we can also add attachments if necessary. I'm not going to go through each one of these settings individually. You can take some time to look at them yourself and learn more about them in our help library. So once all of this is done, I can again go on the right here and just take a look at this finalized invoice. If all of this looks good to me, then I can come up to the top right and either save this invoice and finalize it later, or I can go ahead and send it to the customer right away. Once I click Send, I can finalize the actual email that's going out to this customer. And if everything looks good here, then I can go ahead and click Send. Once I've done that, we're going to be brought back to the main invoicing page. And as you can see, we now have a new invoice being shown here. Its status is due. If you need to make any changes to this invoice, you can click the 3 dots on the right and do things such as edit the invoice. If the customer didn't receive the email for some reason, you can copy a link to the invoice and send it to them that way. You can download the invoice yourself. You can void the invoice. You can clone the invoice. You can convert it into a template to make invoicing in the future even faster. And finally, if they've paid you via a method that isn't integrated with our account, such as cash in hand, then you can record the payment manually so your system is still aware that the invoice has been paid. That's the basics of creating an invoice in Full Scope Freelancer. If you have any more questions about this, feel free to refer to our help library or reach out to our support team anytime, and they will be happy to help.